Welcome to this episode of Thoughts from the Big Chair. Now, I'm delighted to be joined today by Nicole Penn from the EGC Group. And I just want to say a really warm welcome to Nicole.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hey, Nicole, so tell us a bit about your business. And once we've got a better understanding about what you do and which sector you're in, etc., we can dive into some of the specifics around the impact of COVID and how that's changed your business model going forward. So perhaps just start by giving us a good overview of your business.
Great. So I am the president of EGC Group, which is a marketing performance agency. We help propel brands and companies' growth um, by digital marketing solutions, marketing consultancy. And I am also the co-founder of a platform called Raydeus, which is a small business tool that basically is an agency in a box, and it performs all the digital marketing services for that a local business needs.
That's really helpful. And so, one of the questions that we tend to ask on this show is around the impact of COVID. Perhaps let's start there and then see how that unfolds for some of the impacts from a technological perspective.
Sure. So our client base has always been predominantly retailers, franchise groups, and that's always been our largest core client. Of course, during COVID, a lot of those physical retailers had to shut their doors. We had a lot of retail clients that were in mall locations, and that even though some of them were maybe essential services, they still couldn't open their business because their shopping centers were closed or their malls were closed. In addition, our consumer clients, our CPG clients, all had tremendous inventory issues, couldn't meet demand, therefore were just kind of frozen in place. So our immediately, almost like March 16th, we saw just a consistent pause on activities, which then put a pause on our revenues. So within a few days, we were, 40% below forecast.
And so, I mean, you sit there in the meeting room, you look at each other's with whites of the eyes. What was next?
Yeah. So look, we've always ran a very, profitable agency, and a very, we always kept cash in the business, and that proved to be very helpful. So we had we had a store of some cash that we were able to keep everything afloat, and keep everyone, on staff. But then, that's only going to take you so long. And so we had to just right size the organization, make some hard decisions, but, just kind of scale back a bit. We did furlough a few people. We really tried to minimize furloughs. And then thankfully we were able to bring everyone back a few months later. But it was definitely a scary time. I think the question that we were asking ourselves is like, what's next? And um, is this going to be kind of the new normal, and what's our future in terms of, future client business? Um, we also kind of made some changes to diversify our client base, because we always had been so reliant on retail and consumer goods. We started to put a lot of effort into financial services and healthcare, all who were, more active. uh, and that really paid off for us. So we were able to bring revenue back to 2019 levels by that September, October.
That's an incredible feat in many ways. I mean, is that just good old business development, or were there changes to your business model that you had to undertake?
Yeah, we made some changes to our business model. We I became obviously way more involved in the day to day. We did amp up our business development, doing a lot more kind of digital marketing for ourselves as if we were a client. We also did something interesting. We had this empty space. We own the building that we're in New York, and it has been empty during COVID. And we had always done a lot of content production, so we took that empty space and turned it into a content production studio. We found that a lot of production studios were closed. We had clients that their buildings were closed, but they still needed to get out CEO messages, podcasts, and even internal communication, external communication. So this content studio really became a revenue center and helped us achieve that growth that we needed that year.
Yeah, really good. And the when you start to think about, okay, so we probably an overused word in many ways, but to pivot into new business models, I believe that you've started up a new business model over the course of the last year as well. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Sure thing. So we had a lot of franchise groups, retail groups, all that lost maybe their advertising budgets, their advertising funds. They kind of were also frozen in place. So we needed to get a self-service solution to, to our clients that they can use to manage their local digital, their search, that they can use to communicate with customers. So the platform we built is called Raydeus, and it's kind of I say that it democratizes digital marketing for everyone, right? So um, you can get what you need. You don't have to hire an agency to get kind of the base level solutions. It does have an AI platform and an AI component to it. So it does have a voice search answer. So basically, we use voice AI and to build algorithms for these businesses to be found in voice search. So that was kind of new. And yeah, it's become a big revenue driver for us. It's a subscription business, so a business subscribes to it monthly, and they get everything: marketing templates, search, voice search, manage, SEO, and it also has a customer live chat feature. So we built something where, especially retail clients that didn't have like a dynamic website, but they needed to facilitate e-commerce ordering, we built live chat plugins, SMS plugins that actually handle payments and transactions. So what's great, we had retail clients that basically their showrooms were closed, their businesses were closed, but they could operate as if they were open using these features.
And is that how do you go about doing that? I mean, just from a kind of bringing the idea to your technology team. I mean, this is in many ways trying to develop a new product in a distributed remote fashion is hard at the best of times, but you're doing this in a bit of a firestorm environment. How did you go about technologically kind of developing the product? Who was involved, and what were the leadership lessons that you drew from that?
Thank you. Yeah, so we had this vision that myself and my director of digital, honestly, we like old school drew it on a piece of paper, like what would this dashboard look like, and what problems does it solve? And that was kind of where we started. We just asked ourselves, like, well, what are the pain points that we need to solve right now, and how do we build for that? And some of that, we built homegrown with a suite of developers that we hired for the project. And then we also kind of worked with our best technology partners. So in the retail business, there are kind of some well known providers. And we went to them and said, look, if we brought, 5,000 independent businesses as users to your platform, what can you do for us? And how do we bundle what you do into this broader marketing solution? So I guess the lesson is, like, we built what we could, and then we borrowed and plugged in from some of our other technology platforms. So I do think that was really the way to go, because if we were to try and build all of that tech from the ground up, it probably would still be in development. So um, things like the SMS capabilities, that is through a partner. Things like we have a kind of automated Google My Business Manager, that is through another partner. So we've bundled these partners together to really bring in one solution.
What were the biggest? I mean, when you going out and working with partners, what was the kind of biggest technical challenge you found during that process?
Um, I think, you know, the one of the biggest challenges is like really understanding the the rate of adoption that we needed, like how many users would have, we couldn't really forecast like how many users to expect because it was brand new. And we also couldn't anticipate what we would need from a customer care standpoint. And our business is very high touch and consultant driven. And then what's it going to look like when you have 1,000 different business owners using this platform, and what can we expect from a customer service standpoint? So some of the, I think that the biggest challenges were just the unknowns of how to staff for that, right? So like, you know, are we going to be needing to kind of handhold these clients? And it turned out we didn't. It turns out that people were really able to adopt the technology pretty quickly and easily. We did a lot of user testing, just to understand what, how to better serve our client base. And for, I think one other kind of lesson in this is I actually did go to YPO for my beta group and get, kind of friends and family on the platform first, because they were our best, guinea pigs in this and gave us the best feedback. And they still use the platform to this day, but they were great at the beginning to give us that early user experience that we needed.
And would you draw parallels of what you've developed on the Raydeus platform to a SaaS platform? Is that the way we should be thinking about this?
Yes, it is. It is a SaaS platform, and my background is not in SaaS, and we've never developed anything like this before. So it's been a true educational process for me. I did have some kind of consultants and advisors along the way, but yeah, it's been really interesting. It's a complete business model shift from a consultant retainer type of business to a subscription e-commerce SaaS business.
Yeah. And from a KPIs and metrics, how are you measuring the success rates of that?
Yeah, so we had a forecast when we launched that we just wanted to get to 1,000 users, just like as our first goal. We actually didn't have a dedicated marketing team for it. We were selling it to our client base, and we really quickly surpassed that early goal. And a lot of that is just from referrals. And we also really started to kind of go deep into certain verticals, which has proven to be pretty successful. We learned that with SaaS, that the more niche you are and like the more targeted you are, the better. So we started to build out Raydeus for certain industries that needed the platform, and customize it for those industries, starting with optical. Optical has been a big user base of Raydeus.
Interesting. And so the lessons in scaling, I mean, you mentioned marketing a few times there, but is that you're obviously from a marketing background and trying to grow and scale a SaaS-based business. So what were your insights from a marketing standpoint to try and get those scale?
Yeah, I think I guess one of the early wins that we had was to realize that we weren't going to sell this into individual businesses. It just would never be profitable, right? We're not going to pitch every Main Street business, but instead deal with the networks that deal with those businesses. So organizations, buying groups, and build Raydeus as a benefit to, say, a buying group, and so that they can sell it to their 18,000 members. So I think finding channel partners was our biggest early win and how we'll continue to scale it.
And is that in the US or is it gone beyond the shores of the US?
Yes, it has. So it is live and active in Australia. So we have a user base there. I actually do have a small team in Sydney, and it's done quite well. And of course, it's been useful as Australia is deep in their lockdown. Um, it's really helping businesses that were not digital, that needed to be quickly digital, get to where they needed to be for COVID.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because that whole uh, point around digital transformation, you're at the apex of that, where you're helping small businesses then find ways to get online and then attract eyeballs. What are you hearing from the market now? Do you think this is a kind of permanent shift for many of your customers that have adopted the Radius platform?
Definitely. We Anyone who added any type of digital transformation, whether it's new customer interfaces, dealing digital showrooms, having virtual sales team, and just moving that all online, they've kept all of that in place, and it's not going away. And it was interesting for them because we're talking to some clients that were very reliant on foot traffic, and they never felt strongly that digital could ever replicate that, like, experience that you get, say, walking into a Sephora or, a Macy's. But we really have seen just this change in a consumer where they just want convenience. And if I can get it done, on my phone, that's how I shop. I, I am not a fan of shopping or walking into malls. So I am so happy to have extra tools of convenience to make my process easier.
Yeah, I think probably the shopping and marketing habits have changed. I mean, I suppose you're obviously very focused on retail, but when it comes to SaaS platforms, particularly one that's growing as you have done, how do you wrap it around with the customer service and make sure that you optimizing your retention rates? Because the big metric in SaaS is obviously one of these average cost of the customer for acquisition, and then there's the whole point around retention. So you spent a lot of money trying to get working through channel partners to scale, but how do you then wrap that with the service?
Thank you. It's a good question. So one thing we learned that a certain subset of our user base does not want to do things themselves. So they actually did not want all the self-service tools that we had. And we had to layer service for a fee onto the platform because they were not going to go into the dashboard and build out their campaigns themselves. So then we had to say, okay, we can offer these services at tiered, but at a price. So we've continued to offer service as part of this SaaS platform because you would go in and see some users that have never logged on to the to the platform in like a 3-month period, and that's a warning sign. So we would reach out to those users and understand where where the pain points were, and then fix those with a service model.
Yeah. The You mentioned price there, which is always fascinating about particularly early stage SaaS businesses. How did you um, try and figure out what the right pricing points were?
Yeah, we had a lot of pricing models and a lot of pricing model discussions, and we came out at a much different price than we are today. Um, we were conscious of who our user was and that this needed to be a low cost. In our mind, it needed to be like a Netflix model where it's a charge on your credit card and you're not, reviewing it every month. And it had to be low cost. just to be a value to, an independent business owner. So we looked at all of the different marketing SaaS platforms that exist, what their price point was, and we also knew a lot about some of these users in terms of what they have, what their average marketing investment is. Um, in some cases, if it's a franchise group, they have their own local ad fund, and it's very limiting. So we needed to live within that space that it's affordable, and that the price value proposition worked, right? That I'm getting the way exceeding the value I get for the price. And yeah, finally found the right willingness to pay, that price point that like, okay, everyone was happy to pay, feel like they found a value. But it took some time. It took about, I think, 6 to 7 months to get the right price value, um, to get that to get that right.
Well, I suppose that's the benefit of the SaaS platform, though, isn't it? So you can have different pricing tiers, and then depending on, the not every customer is the same, but you can certainly band them to different categories. So you can try and adjust the pricing depending on the usage or what's the customer's actually requiring, and you get more educated through that process. Are there any kind of major lessons learned, would you say, on the calibration of pricing? You sit there with your spreadsheets and try and figure out what the pricing is and do a kind of back of the thumb exercise. But what were the kind of takeaways for you guys just to get that market feedback and start to recalibrate what's appropriate?
Yeah, we did a lot of forecasting to say, okay, if we're offering this price, and if we get to X price point, does it mean that we're increasing volume by Y? And I think that was like a big discussion. It's like, well, how do you make this that um, how do you make the price that attractive that it's just automatically going to grow? Because it is, we did go out with a lower price point than what's in the market, and we were able to because we built a platform where that was we still maintain high profitability with a low price point because it was based on volume. So we knew that once our platform is picked up within certain networks, there's a network effect, right?
Yeah.
So 5 users can easily mean 19,000 users.
Yeah. So, a fascinating journey, and obviously, kind of choppy times. Amazing that you would 40% down to begin with, and then started to climb back, and then it started to accelerate really quickly. What were the lessons? Would you say the kind of meta lessons that you'd say, looking back now, from a leadership standpoint? What within YPO, particularly, there's lots of folks who are trying to navigate a growth and particularly an international growth curve. What were your leadership lessons from your experience over the last 12 to 18 months?
Well, I think the biggest one had to do with my team and just leading with as much empathy and kindness as possible because we all experienced this in a very different way. We were, on the same ocean in a different boat, so to speak, and but everyone had their own struggles. So like really double down on kindness and empathy and check-ins with the team and just making sure that everyone had what they needed and they were supported. I actually never felt closer to my team as if I felt over the past 18 months
Mm.
um, because of what we've all gone through.
Amazing, isn't it? And in the future, is this? I don't know whether you were always in the office, but I mean, we hear this phrase now being bandied around, which I think is pretty common to most industries around hybrid working. Is that where you guys are?
Yeah, we will definitely be a hybrid company as we go forward. We were always reliant on previously on in person, and just found that we had a lot of people that needed the work life balance. And as much as we do still have in person time, we have in person sessions. We make a point to make those meaningful, right? If we're gonna bring people back, when we bring them back, it's for creative sessions, collaborative sessions. I didn't want to put people on a commute to have them sit on a Zoom. So we have had these kind of offsites. We've had in office creative sessions, but then also have the team kind of work from home when they need to. And that combination feels right. And the benefit also to this new model is that we now have talent from all over the world that we wouldn't have had access to before. So I just hired a developer from the Midwest. We have another developer overseas, and it's just all working better than it would have, several years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing, isn't it, that we are in an environment where we're developing new products, we're scaling them internationally, and we're doing it from the comfort of our home offices. So it very much is a new paradigm that we're living in. I want to just end by congratulating you. It sounds like you've done an amazing job of scaling Raydeus, and I'm sure there's more to come. So thank you, Nicole, for sharing your insights for the big chair today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.